Not me, not me, not me, she wailed. She heard snickering and peeked through her bangs. Monty was poking Christopher between the shoulder blades with the eraser end of his pencil, and Christopher jerked in his seat. His hand shot up. Mrs. Mitchell looked at him warily. "Yes, Christopher?" "I'll read mine," he said, shooting a satisfied glance back at Monty, who put his head down on the desktop, as if a game of 7-Up had started. Emily could hear him wheezing with laughter. "Go ahead," said Mrs. Mitchell. Christopher stood and held his notebook in front of him like an orator. In a separate piece, Finney decides to wear a pink shirt. Some say this is an expression of individuality, but I see it as a sign that he is gay. Pink shirt equals gay. Also, the name Finney, very gay. So my painter would paint a picture of a gay man in a pink shirt symbolizing 100% gay. There was a stunned silence. The students exchanged glances, delighted and disbelieving, then shifted their attention back to Mrs. Mitchell, primed for the inevitable explosion. Her face had gotten very red, as it always did when she was flustered, and her hands were shaking. Emily ached with second-hand embarrassment. "Go to the back of the room and take a seat," Mrs. Mitchell said in a quavering voice. "Stay there. Don't leave when the bell rings." Christopher's neck glowed suddenly with its own bright heat, and he moved as if to hunch down and grab his books from beneath his desk. "Go on," Mrs. Mitchell said. "Leave your books." "Okay. God," he said. He made a jaunty about face, mouth set in a smirk, and stuck his fingers into the front pockets of his jeans, so that his thumbs rested easily on his narrow hip bones. He sauntered down the aisle between his row and Emily's, and she couldn't help but watch him. His skin, which hadn't yet lost its summer color, was golden against the white cuffs of his Oxford shirt, and a lock of his thick, dark brown hair hung over his eye, so that he had to cock his head to shake it out of his vision. He had always been kind to her. That is, unlike others in their grade, he had never been cruel to her. They'd shared a table for a semester in 7th grade science class, both of them smart enough and serious enough to complete Mr. Weiland's assignments successfully, with time left over for catching up on homework due in the next period. He'd even helped her with her science project, the effects of ultraviolet light on tadpoles, staying after class with her a few times to look at the tadpoles getting exposed to the UV lamp, cracking jokes about tadpole fricassee and tadpoles with suntans, helping her sprinkle fish food into the water and take notes in her logbook. She ended up winning 2nd place at the regional science fair. His eyes were bright blue. She had never seen such blue eyes. He stopped by her desk, the little smile still playing on his lips, and leaned toward her. Her heart skittered, and her mouth got very dry. She tried to wet her lips, but her tongue had gone numb and stupid, and she prayed that she would be able to speak back if he spoke to her, that she would say the right thing. "Stop staring at me, creep," he whispered, but not so low that the students close by them failed to hear it. There was more muted laughter. "What was that?" Mrs. Mitchell called from the front of the room. "Nothing," Christopher said innocently. The tears started to spill before she could stop them. She put her head down as Monty had before, wiping her eyes on her forearms. "Not real. This isn't happening." He plopped down in the desk behind her and shoved his feet roughly into the storage cubby under her seat. "You can all use the rest of the class as a study hall," Mrs. Mitchell said. "Anyone who makes a peep will be joining Christopher after class on a trip to Mr. Burton's office. Got it?" A few heads nodded. Mrs. Mitchell put a hand on conscious